Suffering from information overload when you first log into ClickUp? Views can help you filter out the information that you don't need so you get to focus on what exactly you need to do in ClickUp. I'm Catherine. I'm an attorney with over 20 years litigation experience here in California, and I'm also the founder and principal consultant at The Resource Woman. We work with law firms to help them set up their matters so that they can run more smoothly, efficiently, and profitably. In this video, I'm talking about views in ClickUp. Views are a powerful way to filter and sort information in ClickUp and to avoid things like information overload. So you can see here, sometimes we can think of ClickUp as a giant spreadsheet and it's got lots and lots of information, but we don't always need to see all that information at once. And so we can use views to help us slice and dice the information and present it in different ways to make it more usable. Okay, so we know ClickUp thinks in tasks. And those tasks live in lists. Lists can live in folders, and then those folders live in spaces. So that's the vertical hierarchy of ClickUp. But within a particular list, we have our tasks, and we can look at our tasks in lots of different ways. One of the most common ways to look at our tasks is a list view. So you can see on my screen here, I've got just a simple alphabetical list of all the plaintiffs in my imaginary case, and we're looking at their complaints, their initial pleadings, which in this case is complaints. And you can see I've captured a lot of information here, and it's kind of hard to really tease out what I need to focus on. So I can use views to filter and custom and sort that information so that I only see a piece of that, the piece that's most relevant for what I'm trying to do. And ClickUp has a few different kinds of views. Probably the most common for uses as attorneys is the list view, which is the one you're seeing here, a board view, and sometimes a table view. So let me just show you really quickly what those are. So for example, I've got this assignee. This is a board view, and if you're familiar with Kanban boards, it's similar. And the nice thing about this is that each task is on its own card, and however you have it grouped, the columns grouped, it's really easy to change whatever that is just by dragging and dropping. So for example, this particular example, I have it grouped by the assignee. So if I need to change the assignee, I can easily go to this view and say, you know what, instead of Kate working on that, I need Carlos to work on that. So I'm just going to drag that over to Carlos's column, and he can, and now that task is assigned to him. So that is one way you can use a Kanban board. It's like that drag and drop feature is really helpful, especially if you have users that don't really know how to click through ClickUp and get things that they can just move it, drag and drop. It can be really more comfortable for some people. Another kind of view that I find people like is the table view. I think one of the reasons why people like this view is because it looks like a spreadsheet. It's much more like something they're probably used to seeing in Excel or something like that. So this table view is just a different way to look at the same information, just like any other view. And so people that are more comfortable with it, this is probably a good view for them. I don't use it all that often myself, except for when I feel like a user would need it. So the one thing I would caution is that table view looks like a spreadsheet, but it doesn't really act like a spreadsheet in terms of the formulas and dragging and dropping and different things like that you can do in Excel that you can't necessarily. It's just a little more clunky in the table view in ClickUp. Okay, so to create a view, there are a couple different ways. We can go to this plus view, add a view. Well, let me back up. So first of all, here we are in a list. So we are just looking at, and I can make a view at any list within the hierarchy. So if I wanted to look at everything in this case, which is this Doe v. Associated Institute case, I could just create a view at that level, and it would just give me a higher level view of all the different tasks that are in that matter. I find views most helpful at the list level for most people. So here I am, I'm just in my initial pleadings list, and I'm looking at all the complaints here. This is the table view. So let's say I want to create a view for myself. I can simply click Add View, and then I have some choices here, different types of views. And again, the ones I've talked about, the board view, calendar, which can be a really great way to see a case calendar. And some of these other more project management that we don't necessarily use too much. My clients I use them to monitor as a project manager, but in terms of actually having other attorneys in ClickUp, probably not as useful. So we've got the main types that we probably want to use are list, board, and table view. So I'm going to create a new list and a new list view, and I'm just going to call this, my complaints. And I can choose whether I want to make this view private so that only I see it, or I can make it public and everyone can see it. I also have the choice to pin the view, and you can see the little pins up here. I've got some views pinned, and those are really helpful if you want to, if they're just some key views that you know your attorneys and staff, your team is going to need, like everyone's going to need to be able to see this type of list. And so, but when you do pin a list, it pins it for everyone, not just you. And if you want to save something that's just for you, I recommend that you make it a favorite view after you've created it. And I do have a video on favorites as well, so you can go figure out how to do that there. So, okay, so we have our list. We're going to make our list view. We're going to call it My Complaints. I don't want to make it private. I don't want to pin it for everyone. I'm just going to add the view. And when you create a table view in ClickUp, it automatically shows you certain things. It sets up the view to show you the task name, the assignee, and the due date. But that's not always how we want to see our information. Okay, so I've made my complaints view, and ClickUp has defaulted to include certain information in this view. It groups by the status of each task, and then it also groups by, it also shows, so the name of the task, it shows the assignee, the due date, and the priority. But there are other fields that might be more relevant that I want to see. For example, I might want, so I can add a column to my view. I can say show or hide something that's already in the list but sort of hidden. It's in that bigger spreadsheet that we started with, that bigger view when I first started the video, and then now I can, but I get to choose now which ones of those columns do I want to see in my view. So I'm going to say I want to see this, the stages that it's at, and maybe I want to see the, I probably do want to see the due date, and I can look at, so pretty much any other thing I can look at. I can see linked tasks if I want to see what are the other tasks that are linked to that particular client. I don't really need to see things that are complete. So I can filter now that I've got it. So I've added some columns, and now I can filter or sort by those columns, or I can also group by those columns. So maybe I want to filter it out so I'm not seeing anything that's actually complete, because I don't need to see those. I want to know the things that I'm assigned to, or whatever that's assigned to me that I need to actually take care of. So if it's already done, I don't care. So I am going to filter by status, and I'm going to say status is not closed or done. All right, and you'll see I got this little toaster message over here saying this view has unsaved changes. If this is a view that you're creating for yourself, you probably just go ahead and autosave instead of having to save every time. If you are working in a view that other people are using as well, I recommend you might want to save it for yourself, but maybe not autosave it, just so that if someone else comes in, they can filter it and do whatever they want, and it doesn't mess up everybody's view. So if you do want it to be your own view and you're going to make the settings on it, then yeah, you can autosave it or whatever you want to do. So anyway, so going back to our view, we've got this, now we've filtered our view. So we're only showing tasks or complaints where they're not complete yet. Now let's say I want, I don't really want us to group by status. I actually want to group by assignees. I want to see who's working on what. So I am going to go to group by here, and I'm going to group by assignee. And it's going to show me, here are all of the here are 4 that are tasks assigned to different people. The one disadvantage you can see on this is it sort of shows you groups. So if you've got Shay and Avery and the paralegal on one task, and you've only got Shay and Avery on another one, it's going to show up as 2 different groupings. So you keep that in mind when you're grouping by assignee. And I could also filter out, so I only want to see the things that are assigned to one of my people. So I can add a filter, and I can say I want to filter by where the assignee is, and I can pick 2 people. I want to say where it's either assigned to Avery or Shay. So now I filtered it out, and look, I've got much shorter. So now I'm only looking, I've still got my status, but I've also narrowed it down by the assignee. So I'm only seeing certain complaints are assigned to certain people, and then I can go over here and I can see the status of those particular complaints. Now, if you're not grouping by status, but you want to kind of see the status, you can add a column to show, it would be a show column, status, and there's my status. So I can easily see, oh, look, this one down here, it needs action. So it's been assigned to Avery, it needs some action, some kinds of, if I'm the manager and I want to know something a little bit more about that, I know I need to go probably ask Avery and say, hey, what's the issue here? What can we do? So that's one way to filter and group your views so that you can kind of customize how you want it to be for yourself. Now, again, like I said, if you want to make it a private view when you create the view, you can do that. If you also want to just save this, if you want to maybe decide later, okay, I want this view to just be my view and no one else really needs to see it, you can come up here to the drop down menu, go to this is your view here. Okay, we talked about favoriting it in the other video, but you can also pin it or favorite it by clicking on the ellipsis. There's the favorite option. You can also duplicate as, and then you can duplicate it as a different view actually, which is a relatively new feature and I haven't totally checked it out yet. So I won't do that yet, but it's kind of helpful. You can move it. You can also make it a personal view down here. So if I click on that personal view, it's going to say, okay, this is only going to be visible to you. Is that okay? You're taking it away from everybody else. Is that all right? But if you're it's your own view anyway, then that's fine. You can also, if you do want it to be someone else, you do want to leave the view intact for other people, you can simply duplicate it as a personal view as well. So I'm going to say I'm going to convert this view, and now it's just my own view. No one else can see it. Another thing you can do with a view is you can protect the view. So here I've got my private view here, and I want to protect it, which you probably don't really need to protect a private view, but just go along here. So protecting the view. And that just means that someone else can't come along and make changes to your view. And so ClickUp will ask you, it says you can't, no one else is going to be allowed to change this. Is that what you want? It offers the little option to explain why are you protecting this view. So I'm going to just be like, because this is my own personal view. So if you need it, please make a copy. Please duplicate it. And then it'll protect the layout. So then if I go in and I want to change, maybe I don't want to see this column, or I don't want to see that column, or I want to reorder things, it's going to say, hey, do you really want to do that? It's protected, and you can and certain people have rights to unprotect it. I want to also show you sorting. So I'm going to go, actually I have to unprotect the view first because I've protected it. So I'm going to unprotect it. Yes, I'm all fine to unprotect it. And then I can show you some of the other ways you can manipulate the data in ClickUp to see what you want to see. So let's say I've got a group by assignee. I'm fine with that. But now I want to see it. I want to see the alphabetical order. So I want to show you how to sort. So maybe I want to see this. I still want to be grouped by assignee, but I want to alphabetize the order of the tasks so the names are in alphabetical order. I can click over here. You'll see where it says it's got the grouping name here, and then it says 4 tasks. So I'm going to click on that, and it says sort by task name. And now I'm going to choose that, and now both groups are now sorted by task name, within themselves. So that can be a helpful way, especially if you've got a lot of data and a lot of order that you want to see things. You can sort by task name, and that'll be your alphabetical list. But let's say, maybe you want to sort on a different column. So maybe you want the due date, the ones with the earliest due dates, to be on top. So then you can also, again, click on the label, the field label on the top there where it says the due date. I can click on that and I can say sort, and it's going to sort on my due dates. The interesting thing to notice here is that you see that number 2 there and the number 1 here. So it didn't change that much here because it's going by the name first, and then it's sorting by due date. So it's only going to really be helpful if you've got everything named exactly the same, but that's not going to be very likely. So you know, a lot of people come in and say, well, I'm trying to sort by due dates, but it's not working. You can really see that down here in Avery's list over here. We've got, you know, May 5th and then another May 5th, May 4th. It should be May 4th, May 5th. You know, it should be in that order. So it's not working the way we thought. The problem is usually that the list, the sorting has something ahead of it. So this tells us due date is number 2. So that's the second criteria for sorting. I want to make it the first criteria. Yeah, I can do that by clicking on that gray area again, and it'll pull up the sorting order, and I can simply just grab it and move it there like that. The other thing I can do, so now it's sorting by due date first and then by name. So that way you can, it's probably what you were thinking of when you were thinking of sorting by due date. You can also just simply take off the second, the other one. We can just clear the sort. So then we're only sorting by due date. Another common issue that comes up with users is that they create a view, or somebody else creates a view for them, and then they sort of lose that view. And that happens. I talk about that in my favorites video as well. I call this like stacking views. So remember when we created a view, we have the option to pin it. If we don't pin it as a separate view, it'll be stacked together with any other views of the same type. So I've got my 5 different views stacked on each other. They're all list views. None of them are pinned. So they're just sort of stacked one off of the other. And a lot of times if you can't find your view, that's usually where it's hiding. It's hiding over here. Let's say I want to look at the Jamie view because I'm Jamie and I only want to see the stuff that I need to do things for. So I can, so I have to drop down and click it there. But if I'm Jamie and I know this is my view that I want to come back to a lot, I'm probably better off setting it as a favorite. Otherwise, it's super easy to get it lost. And this is fine when it's only 5 views, but sometimes you can get, you know, a lot of views stacked on each other, and can make it really hard to find what you're looking for. And you're like, I just saw that. Because the tricky thing is if I come back to this, if I'm Jamie, I'm looking at my view, and then I step away and I come back. Meanwhile, someone else has looked at the alphabetical list. When Jamie comes back to this particular list, this complaints list, she's going to see the last view that anybody else in the team looked at. And so she might be thinking, where's my Jamie view? And then she has to go through the stacked list. So that's why one of the reasons favorites are really powerful. And I recommend doing that, especially if you've got a view that you've created just for yourself. Okay, so I walked through a lot of the different options in filtering and sorting views in list view, because that's usually a view that people are very comfortable with. But I just wanted to also touch base on a couple of the other views that I've mentioned before. Now we can do most of this filtering and sorting type of tasks arrangements in list view, and we can usually do most of them in other views as well. For example, a board view. So maybe you want to look at the assignee board, and this one I've already set it up so that it is grouped by assignee. And we talked about that before, where you can just drag and drop. We can also customize what information shows on everybody's cards. So we can go over here to the show button, and it will tell us, you know, we can choose which custom fields we want to show. Do we want to show the primary status? So now I can see, now you'll see I've populated it. I've chosen to view the primary status. So I can see these are drafting, these are with client, these are filed and served. These are not started yet. So I've got assignees grouped by assignee, and then I have chosen to show what the sort of main status of that complaint is in the process. So you can customize what information shows up on these cards depending on what you're using it for. Sort of the same, another side of the same coin is the status board, which again, like I said, ClickUp defaults to group by status. So now I've got this grouped by status, and you can see completely like 26 are done, 3 need some sort of attention. We've got 49 in progress, 9 are open, which probably means they're not started. And again, we can customize it. We can use filters if we only want to see things that are assigned to a particular person. So maybe we only want to see the things that are assigned to Carlos. And now we only see Carlos's complaints that he's working on. And if I want to clear that filter, I just exit out over here. And now it's gone back to my original. Okay, so I've showed you different kinds of views, how to filter and sort views and customize it to show you the information you want to see. And also how to protect it, make them personal, pin them, make them favorites, different ways that you can keep those views that you use the most front and center for yourself. And so I hope this has been helpful. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you like what you've heard today, please subscribe to the channel. I'm releasing new videos on a regular basis. And also you can head on over to theresourcewoman.com where you can find more about how the right resources can let your matters practically manage themselves. Thanks.